Okay, so as I was trying to put this together, I realized that I don't have a good title. So what I have is a topic, a topic area, um, and I will say, so if I'm looking for, I've got a topic looking for a title. So I love it if people have ideas about that. So I'm looking at engaging low-income youth in community energy engineering projects in order to promote transformative agency. So traditionally, schools position youth as learners um, who are preparing themselves to contribute at some later date in the future, right? But my position is that if we're going to have resilient communities, we need resilient youth who see themselves as both learners and contributors simultaneously right now, in the current time and in the future. And in particular, I am interested at this moment in history in youth's capacity and inclination to play roles in preparing for our energy transitions, our future of our energy futures, and to do that in ways that foster resilience for themselves and also for their communities. So if we think about this is a problem that's multi-pronged and multifaceted and has both challenges and opportunities. So right now, I'm particularly interested in low-income youth in this area because we know that the bottom 25% of our economic population spends the most in their energy costs, and it's just incredibly crippling. Some of the things that Patricia shared with us earlier have actually showcased that issue as well, particularly with the heat related deaths in Phoenix. This is particularly an issue here. At the same time, we are at a university that is actually at the forefront of leading in terms of energy transition. So, and a city who has a great stake in that as well. So we're in a good position to engage youth in thinking about these issues and contributing to them. We're also in a situation where, actually, let me start here, where we have declining interest in STEM. Fewer students are going into STEM careers and STEM trajectories. We have historically not made pathways for underrepresented minority students and or low-income students to participate in significant ways in the STEM education or STEM workforce. And we also have an education system right now that sees youth and often treats youth as learners and not contributors until some future date where they'll suddenly be ready to do so. At the same time, we do have an industry and an education system that is aware of and trying to target these areas. And I think very hopefully we have students who, we have youth who are quite engaged in climate change activism for one. They are in fact contributing, they are in fact making impacts, and they are doing it largely without infrastructuring by people who could be their adult supporters, right? So they are leading themselves. My question is, can we come around them as cadres of adults to help them and support their leadership? So one way of framing this is, how might we foster youth and community resilience? So can youth become more resilient, and can they help their communities be more resilient if we come around creating cadres of adults to do this? And in particular, my work for this process is focused on one local school district. Can we infrastructure supports in a school district, so that a school district can come around youth and try to create these kinds of learning landscapes that will both inside schools and outside of schools that can support youth leadership and energy innovation. So me and some of my colleagues have been exploring some of the ways to support youth and doing real work with real consequences, and trying to create cadres of adult supporters to do that. These are just a couple of the ways that we've been trying to explore those possibilities. We do feel that we are seeing some success with this question about whether students can add social value to their communities if they have adults to support them in doing so. So these are some examples of some cadres of supporters that we've tried to bring together around youth projects, energy projects. But can we do this at a local district level? Can we create curriculum that will support through which teachers broadly can foster youth agency through energy innovation? How can we structure collaborations between school personnel and those beyond the school classroom doors to support youth energy innovations? And then what, if we do so, what actually might youth create if they're given social and physical tools to support their community? Also interested in if we can, whether or not we can identify best practices that we can lead, that we can scale out possibly beyond this project. And then also looking at actual social value that might be created if youth are engaged in community innovation projects. Some of the things that are some of the theoretical constructs that are guiding this work are Calabrese and Barton's idea about rightful presence in STEM for low-income and minoritized youth. And one of the tools that they use to try to create rightful presence for youth is critical community ethnography. Stetsenko explores youth transformative agency. Can we imbue youth with agency to make change in their local communities? Some pedagogical supports that can help us design for this as we're thinking about embedding these kinds of ideas and goals into more formal classroom settings is the idea of expansive framing. So framing youth's learning as not as being valuable beyond this moment, beyond the next test, and beyond the classroom doors, engaging them in productive disciplinary engagement, and using kind of cycles of project-based learning to engage in real work with real consequences. So I'm working with the Alhambra Elementary School District, and I have to say that they've been wonderful partners for a number of years now in similar projects, but we've never tried to scale anything at the district level. We have been developing this partnership for a little while, but I'm running into a lot of bumps with the coordination and relationship as they try to manage and navigate this new environment that they're facing. Trying to find ways to support them, and this is some of the things that we're trying to explore. They are thinking about new strategies for their next year, and I will just say that right now it's a bumpy road, and we are exploring various avenues, including we are creating curriculum. We are exploring the possibility of community energy engineering clubs for next year. that might span some work at school and some work at home if students are spending one day or more a week at home, school days at home. For the summer, the work is a little bit more laid out. We are conducting a literature review. We are doing some focus groups and engaging teachers and students in curriculum development at the K-8 level, focusing on 4th through 8th grade. And we're doing that in online contexts. And we're also exploring industry and academic partnerships. We have some partnerships that we've created, that we forged in the past, but this kind of work, scaling it out, is going to it's going to entail different kinds of relationships and probably much more connectivity that we've been able to foster as to date. Fall is much more nebulous at this point in time. But here's what I'm interested in seeding. Again, this is kind of a scaled out agenda. So by December, we'll have to kind of bound and constrain this project as we move into the summer here. But one of the things that I think we can definitely impact is a more connected energy curriculum, at least within the school district. That's an outcome of interest. And the impact, what we'd hope to impact is a model that could be transferred to other schools and other school districts. So when I say connected energy curriculum, I'm interested in challenge-driven curriculum. So STEM curriculum that recognizes science and engineering as both social, technical, and ecological. So looking at integrated curriculum across the scope and sequence of, for instance, the district's social studies and science standards. Thinking about energy curriculum that works at multiple scales, so that if the students are thinking at both multiple temporal scales and multiple spatial scales across within their, how do energy concepts, what do those look like within their local communities, as well as scaled out across their city, state, nation, globally. Also thinking about the ways that curriculum needs to bring together past, present, and future, and a kind of a chordal triad of agency is the way that some theorists put this. So we're looking at things, for instance, like futures thinking activities, futures energy thinking activities, and also counter narratives, looking at the past energy systems, present energy systems, and future energy systems, and particularly taking a critical stance at how those vary across communities.
Hold on.
Am I at time?
You've got 1 minute, hon.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So another outcome that I'm very interested in is value creation within, so what are the visible youth projects that might be created? And we can think about these, these could be grand, but they could also be small, right? Small wins. So these could be scaled. Interested in these projects that could be scaled at classroom levels. So what energy projects might youth implement, does problem frame, generate solutions for, and implement within their classroom, within their schools, within their communities. Also interested in the social value that being engaged in such, in supporting the youth-led projects might have for communities and industry and academic collaborators.
There's your time.
Okay, wonderful. And then the last outcomes and impacts that I'm very interested in are student and teacher agency. So I'm hoping to create a website for educators, outreach coordinators, and youth, and lots of community partners have been influencing my thinking around these topics. So many thanks to them.
Awesome topic. It hits close to home for me. I'm going to open up for some questions. We've got about 5 minutes.
Hey, Michelle, it's Dawn. I loved your presentation, and it makes me think about almost like what we're doing here in the knowledge exchange, and how maybe even the students could develop some sort of like a, an e-portfolio network or an exchange of their experiences and the work that they're doing in some way that it kind of allows synergies and learning from each other. Maybe that's through your website idea. Maybe that's what you're.
I love it, Dawn. I'm actually, yes, that's one thing if I create such a showcase, but the district, if we're going to infrastructure the district to do it, then the district, it's really important that the district creates such showcases. And they do have some showcases that, that this could be incorporated or transformed into. I love that idea. Thank you. I'm going to keep playing with that.
Sure, yeah. It was interesting. I was just watching a presentation from Maricopa Community Colleges. One of their candidates for the Innovation of the Year was to do this e-portfolio site where students would post all of their work as a kind of knowledge exchange or data repository place. And that seems really applicable for your project.
It really does. And we've done some things with that related to energy education, energy project competitions. But I think I like the idea of showcasing. I also like the idea of youth being able to turn to each other in some ways for critique and feedback on projects in progress. So I'll keep exploring that.
This is Janice. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. I think that this is a great project in that it empowers the young adults that are going to be our leaders in the future to start taking an action in their future. I think that Julia's title suggestion in the chat room is really a great direction towards what you're trying to go. And I would counsel against the engaging low-income youth because when you start a project calling it with low-income youth, the youth that are going to be looking at the project are going to be stepping out of it. But calling it Rising of Youth Leadership, they're going to want to step into it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you so much, Janice.
Because that brings the kids into their empowerment level of it. And I'd love to see what happens with it.
That is an excellent point.
Thank you, Janice. And it also stops people from speaking of a point of privilege. Thank you, Janice.
Exactly.
That was very well said. And I was trying to figure out how to say that without sounding highly offended. And so I couldn't figure out how to say it. So I was just quiet. So thank you so much for saying that.
Well, yeah, and it kind of ducks a kind of essentialization that I think the project, one of the things that I really like about your reframing is thinking about younger people as stakeholders and as agents, not as just receptacles for information. I have worked with folks for so long who talk up and down about, quote unquote, empowering people, and they never give up that frame about impressing on young people, their perspective. And so I found your reframing of this to be really powerful.
Thank you, Michael. And
hey, Michelle.
yes, and I apologize for being offensive. I really love the new title, and I highly take your point. I appreciate the comments.
Okay, Erica, do you want to take the last question? We've got about 30 seconds before we have Ms. Dawn present.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So again, really appreciate the way this is framed. And I'm wondering, I kind of started hearing bits of it, but in terms of not just students being learners, but contributors, is there, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate in this setting, but is another extension of that. How can those who are helping to come around these students also be learners? So that the true understanding is if students are contributing, then we who are helping to wrap around them are learning from them. I'm not sure, again, I think that would be a cool aspect of this. I'm just not sure if it's kind of the next step after.
No, I think it's actually not the next step after, it's a simultaneous step. And I thank you for helping me think about framing that. We have, in our work to date, we have positioned students as contributing to their adult. We've positioned youth in adults, in cross-age cohorts, where they are working with adults and providing both receiving and receiving feedback from adult cadre members for their projects, and also providing adults with feedback for their projects. So I do think, though, that if we think about within a single project, the adults and the students are both learners and contributors to that project. That's really wonderful. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Looking forward to hearing more about this.